traded as Bitcoin. This is continuing through and is present day. The SegWit 2x chain, that was the ultimate goal from the New York Agreement. That is what ended up getting canceled, suspended actually. One of the ultimate goals of the New York Agreement to try and achieve a 2 megabyte block size, and that's what they wanted to implement. Bitcoin Improvement Protocol 91, 2030 is what happens next. This is where and BIP 148 we're going to, and here I have a better explanation on what that is. Okay. BIP 148. This is what is referred to as a user-activated soft fork, SegWit. Now you need to know what is SegWit. What is the difference in that they were trying to do, and why it's causing so much difference in the community right now. So, SegWit. Here, this is a block. This is what we have in Bitcoin right now. This is an original Bitcoin block. A bunch of different things contained. You have a counter, kind of relevant. You have and other timestamps, other just general information about a block. Then you have what makes up most of the block in the transactions. Well, this stuff you got over here, this is what is contained in a transaction. A lot of information, kind of technical, but the main thing you want to take is that originally the signature, which verifies your Bitcoin transaction, this block is contained in just a massive amount of data that is inside a transaction. It removes it, segregates the signature and of a transaction almost as a witness and signs it that way. By implementing this software, are able to be built on top of some more level 2 type of softwares can be implemented, and other things that can arise from SegWit. Ultimately, to lower fees, lower transaction costs, speed up the network is one of the main reasons for SegWit. Going back to our timeline here, we want SegWit. Other people don't want SegWit. Bam, conflict. So here, and you have the original. This is where we want to activate SegWit. July 23rd, enough miners signaled that they wanted SegWit. It wasn't implemented right then, but it was eventually, at this point in time, we're going to implement SegWit. It's July 26th. And then this hard fork is what leads to the ultimate take place. These, okay, hold on one second. So here we have SegWit. So the original chain, it was locked in and it was looking like it was going to happen. That's when the people that didn't want SegWit from the New York Agreement said, okay, we're breaking off. We don't want this. We're going to go, we're going to take our vision for the real Bitcoin and we're going to make Bitcoin Cash. That's what they did. So what is Bitcoin Cash? Bitcoin Cash into the SegWit chain. So in the Bitcoin Cash chain, once it's split chain, went to the Bitcoin Cash chain, those nodes, those miners, for SegWit. That made a lot of conflict, a lot of problems between the two parties, the SegWit party, the Bitcoin Cash party, and there was a lot of problems with the actual mining algorithms for Bitcoin Cash itself. EDA, emergency difficulty adjustment, to a bunch of fluctuations in the mining protocols. The miners going, because when the miners originally were brought with this problem, do we take Bitcoin Cash to mine or do we mine Bitcoin? profitable. So the Bitcoin Cash miners were taking the fluctuations in the difficulty and using that to mine for Bitcoin, whichever one was profitable, causing lots of fluctuations in the network. And forth so quickly. That is what led to the Bitcoin Cash days ago, actually. They tried to fix the adjustment. Now there's something called Bitcoin Cash Classic. That's kind of getting a little bit, so that happened just the other day, actually. So we're really like in the middle of this. Yeah, so going back to this timeline. And also, okay. So you can see that was to trigger SegWit. Actually, the Bitcoin Improvement Protocol 141 of SegWit put onto Bitcoin and what we're using right now. The important thing about SegWit, people didn't realize almost what had happened when it was implemented because nothing changed. It was a soft fork, it wasn't a hard fork. Because you didn't have this other party that was signaling, oh, we don't want this new coin. That way, it was through a soft fork, not a hard fork. So, also, SegWit out to be a hard fork or a soft fork, not a hard fork, because other hard forks have to take these witness transactions and they have to hash them a certain way. I was able to take a different hashing algorithm through witness and implement it based on old nodes. So they didn't have to change the actual nodes. They needed to be old nodes, single SegWit, and got accepted by the miners. Fork, not a hard fork. So just a little view on SegWit, because it's the biggest thing happening right now. It's the conflict that kind of drives the. What does it do? Isolates the signature from the rest of the transaction, so it witnesses the rest of the transaction and signs it that way. Allows for a faster generation of the transaction ID. That is what allows the miners to mine it faster, and ultimately is a progression in Bitcoin. Level 2 type programs to be written on top of SegWit. Programs like Lightning Network and other things that are already adopted, like Litecoin, like Bitcoin. Great progress with that, and the community seems to be really behind that and speeding up the network, implementing these progressions. So we have a question. Yeah,
I was going to ask, like, what is the goal of the level 2? Like, what does that ultimately do to either the coin or the network?
Well, like just for example, one of the level 2 programs that could be written on top of Bitcoin with SegWit is Lightning Network, because it is actually on every single transaction you make. So what it does is it allows for people to be intermediaries for Bitcoin, so that you don't have to pay a fee each time. So you're really, if I was to pay you and you were to pay someone else, send my Bitcoin through you to the other person because you're really sending it to that person. To go on the blockchain, it doesn't have, it does get represented on a blockchain in an overall view. That transaction doesn't get put on the blockchain, making the fee much less. General idea of it. I was asking questions while I was making this, so yeah. I'm not an absolute expert. So yeah, that's just one of the things that could be built on top of SegWit. So here actually is part of the Bitcoin Cash difficulty algorithm that is causing, like what we saw the other day when Bitcoin Cash skyrocketed to like $2,000. That was probably showing a lot of why is this happening. This was the ultimate reason, because Cash big blockers, they decided, okay, we're gonna have a hard fork, we're gonna fix this EVA. They changed what their difficulty algorithm was, and now they're creating new blocks every 600 seconds to readjust the difficulty. Show in this difficulty adjustment, and then it's going to look a lot more like this once the miners get kind of used to what they're mining, really, is how it works. But this can cause problems. Like I saw like an hour before this, invalid block after this hard fork is going to cause like, a lot of problems in the network. You know what happened that invalid in the network. So
we'll look for it again.
Classic Bitcoin Cash classic. Maybe I don't know. Other Bitcoin forks, Bitcoin Gold, another one that actually was taken off the blockchain. If you had Bitcoin, you were going to get Bitcoin Gold a couple weeks ago. So just a couple days ago, everyone got their Bitcoin Gold. So if you actually have more Bitcoin Gold now. Holding your Bitcoin. What Bitcoin Gold does is from the SHA-256 mining algorithm to Equihash. What that does is make it ASIC resistant mining, GPU mining. Specifically, what you're trying to do is let your more common person mine. So you don't need this, full machine to just mine a certain Bitcoin. They kind of want to expand mining, let everyone get a part in it. Bitcoin SegWit 2x didn't happen of the New York agreement. The fact that this didn't happen shows a lot of, it kind of shows the hand of a lot of the people that were behind this fork. People like Jeff Garzik, Jihan Wu, they sent out just a note and they were like, hey, this is not happening, it's suspended. And a lot of the community was happy about that, a lot of the community wasn't happy about that. It showed that they weren't getting the support they needed, so they decided to suspend it despite their own personal belief. Commending them about that they had kind of the know that their coin was just going to be maybe another altcoin, not coin, even though they thought it was the ultimate progression in making a better Bitcoin. The right decision. We might not find out for a while. Bitcoin SegWit 2x and other adaptations to Bitcoin. More forks. Here is kind of the technical side of Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Gold versus Bitcoin Cash. You can see the main difference between Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash versus Bitcoin Gold is the mining algorithm, and then the main difference between Cash is the block size and the way that the transactions are actually mined. Not mined, but the transactions flow within the blocks on the blockchain. Like I mentioned, the EDA for Bitcoin Cash changed, so they actually just had the hard fork. So this Bitcoin Cash is a different EDA, even though it's kind of just, they didn't want to put too much pressure on it, but it was overall accepted by Bitcoin. But the main thing about Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash is Bitcoin Cash does not implement SegWit, while Bitcoin does, the one that difference between those. But you have other Bitcoin forks that happen just, well, anyone can create a fork of Bitcoin. So, plus, pretty fast. I mean, people are creating new Bitcoins every day. People think this is good for the development of the network. Other people think that they're just creating coins. They don't really know what they're doing. It's kind of a good showing of the other Bitcoins that are out there right now. This is during Bitcoin spikes, the price of all these, like I saw Bitcoin Red yesterday was up like 250%. But yeah. One of the other big, you got Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum versus Ethereum Classic. There wasn't really, this happened for a specific reason, not just trying to develop the network. the reason that the Ethereum versus Ethereum Classic controversy was born. Bright new decentralized organization supposed to be on, or the first major decentralized app that was supposed to be its platform is going to be a decentralized, to kind of not crowdfund, but sponsor a lot of the other ICOs that Ethereum was planning they were going to have on their platform. Launched, it was the subject of one of the biggest hacks in its existence. At the time, 14% of the entire supply of Ethereum. That definitely caused a lot of controversy within the Ethereum community. What he did was he actually made a recursive function using Ethereum, the DAO's protocol. It was using the DAO to pay the money that it was actually hacking, which was just, really think about it. They stole lots and lots of money, but the main thing that I failed to see in this hack was that it wasn't a problem with Ethereum DAO. And obviously the DAO being built on top of Ethereum, problem, and it affected Ethereum's price catastrophically. Big question in Ethereum's history. So what did they do? And they made Ethereum Classic. That is the old chain that has by the hacker. This is going to be, a reason. Why did they do this? The argument for Ethereum Classic is it stays true with the philosophy of the immutability of the blockchain. What does this mean? It's supposed to never be changed. It's supposed to be something that's set in stone, and you can't change it. It happened, and you're not supposed to go back in time and play, God and change the transactions that were taking place. The cons to Ethereum Classic, everyone supported this hard fork and going have his money in Ethereum Classic, and using the overall protocol of Ethereum away from Ethereum Classic to try and forget about the fork. So obviously the main founder of Ethereum, they went towards the actual Ethereum, not Ethereum Classic. And they stuck with, but they stuck with Ethereum, and you got Roger Vitalik Buterin, founder of Ethereum, along with the other big players that are now progressing Ethereum. They're making more hard forks. That Ethereum versus Ethereum Classic are some of the questions that are raised. Hacker accesses stolen funds. Bitcoin versus Ethereum fuel was added. That was a big thing because you had these two competing currencies, even though they really focus on two completely different ideas. We're really against and almost happy that this hack happened to Ethereum. How are you doing that? That's affecting you too. It's really, that took a big hit after that hack. So, but that does bring us to the benefits of forks and why some people argued for the fork. DApp, like you can see in Bitcoin versus Bitcoin Cash, you got people that are trying to progress the network and not just have the original Bitcoin set in its ways. Ethereum Classic, you have a digression away from his stolen funds and him being access to his stolen funds, and the creation of new coins. This is negative. Some people see this as a positive, but actually, I'm just going to bring it up here. We can see why this can be beneficial with altcoins and such that can be created from the in the community. Okay, so here you go. These on the right here are actual just derivatives of Bitcoin. They didn't go through anything else. You can see you have all these other coins. These are all originally from Bitcoin. It's fuel to the fact that progressed through forks, other use cases can be created from this. You have something Litecoin, and then you see what everything can be developed from Litecoin. Coins that can be created. And here you have Doge. Always fun. It's called mapofcoins.com. Even the things that weren't Bitcoin forks. No, definitely not as expensive as Bitcoin, but see all the altcoins that can be created from Bitcoin or any other coin.
Fun fact, there exists a Gator coin that is a fork from Litecoin.
Okay. Here is some of the effect on price that we can see from forks. It is Ethereum hack, the DAO hack. And you can see it went from $21 all the way down to about $13.5. Investing in Ethereum at this time, and not a happy investor when this happened. Just absolute confusion and madness surrounded the network, and it was just kind of crazy. Watching, but also being a part of it as it was happening. Recent hack, well, not really a hack, even on Ethereum, there was a parity as part of Ethereum. This is just recent news. Ethereum, a hacker, not even a hacker, just someone who said, oops, was basically toying around, and they were sending kill messages to contracts that were on the Ethereum network. If you call that a hacker, I don't know. He basically locked $300 million as a dip in Ethereum's price. People were arguing, are you going to have a hard fork for what just happened? And, that's still getting resolved as we speak. Ethereum,
Classic.
Well, Ethereum,
Vintage.
Ethereum past classic, but more classic than the current Ethereum. For that, right, you can see kind of just the overall accumulation phases that take place before. People see this Bitcoin forking as just free money. If I have one Bitcoin, I'm going to get one Bitcoin Cash. That Bitcoin Cash I'm going to sell. Why not? It's free money. Just also Bitcoin Gold. You see large buys coming in. People love Bitcoin when they think they can get it. Is it good for the popularity, for the growth? I don't know. We're going to have to see.
Yeah, just.
Okay. So yeah, questions? Anyone? What's up?
You want to bring up the thanks. So think about it from an economic lens. To fork, you're technically copying the strategy of an existing. Think about a normal business. The sustainable competitive advantage is kept indoors. Like it's all you gotta protect that to keep your business alive. So, how do you have a sustainable competitive advantage?
I mean, the only way to do that is going to be adaptable. It's going to be dependent upon what the users want. Who are you trying to impress? Are you trying to impress the miners? Are you trying to impress the users? We're trying to implement Segwit 2x. They were the big players. They were the people with lots of money, lots of Bitcoin, so they got a big say. And so it kind of shows that the users won, right? I mean, the users showed that they didn't want this. So is that the best? I don't know. It can be argued, but whichever Bitcoin ultimately wins, so.
Yeah, excellent presentation.
Thanks, man.
I can tell you did a lot of research into that. I wanted ask you, what were your thoughts on I heard that there were still some percentage of miners that were considering still having the SegWit 2x fork, like 30% or something.
I mean, the miners aren't going to be mining a coin that they don't find profitable. Adopted by, X amount of people, profitable mine. So why would they, even if it's in their beliefs, they think it's ultimate for, is the ultimate goal of Bitcoin is going to happen eventually, and they're just getting a head start on mining it? Thought about it until you asked that question, and now that could be really interesting, because are they going to be mining coins that they're going to have such a large percentage of? Very good question. I don't know. We're going to have to see it. That's really cool to think about, but not really cool if that actually happens and SegWit 2x gets implemented. The survival of if that, that path is going to be the one that wins. So.
Questions about the presentation.
Mm-hmm.
So a hard fork always means there's a new coin?
Not necessarily. So you can have hard forks within the network that don't create a new coin, of a new chain though. So you're going to have this new chain, but think about it, 100% of the people from the old chain, no one is mining that, no one's using that old chain, kind of disappears, and then you just as a continuation,
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. There was a lot of signaling. You use the term signaling a lot.
Mm-hmm.
What is signaling?
Basically, the miners saying these are the blocks that we want to mine.
It's been off.
Holy shit. Okay.
It was definitely on at one point. I know I turned it on.
I was able to get the webcam mic to go.
Okay.
Okay, good.
Okay.
But yeah, basically signaling just means
What to say when it died?
He was going well. Like
I know, but he only did like 3 questions with the microphone. It's dead.
Yeah, this is working.
Wait,
never mind. It's all
I
right.
know, but you didn't say what we were passing the microphone. Stop.
I didn't want to say that. I didn't want to. I'm waiting till the end.
So yeah, basically signaling the blocks which the miners produce.
Oh my god.
Which blocks the miners are mining. The nodes that produce the blocks are signaling which blocks. They could be mining Bitcoin blocks. It's whichever ones they choose to mine. Be the blocks that signal for takes place.
But also note that signaling is not only for the crypto space. Signaling happens in the stock market, where I don't know, certain companies releasing a new product. This happens all the time with Apple and new products. Like, oh, this is coming out, people buy into it. That's a signal, positive signal. Where they say, oh, we're selling off assets or whatnot, and that's the negative signal that sends to the investors that sell off at that point. So,
process. So like, if you mine this amount of blocks, you're gonna say, yeah, we have this much power to vote this way in which path Bitcoin is going to take.
Okay, so it's like in the miners are showing their intent of what they're going to do.
Mm-hmm. The miners are seeing basically signaling which chain they want to win. Chain.
They're mining. It's my understanding that like, and it's just like an incentive. It's the miners are like saying, okay, this is what I'm going to do, but maybe it's not forked yet. It's just saying like, oh, this is what I would vote for. So I've heard a lot that like signaling doesn't really mean anything.
Almost. It's also not going to be constant throughout each fork. So like, depending on what they're signaling for, like in Bitcoin's case, it's going to be different. When I was investing in Ethereum, and there was Ethereum Classic that happened, like we got a vote in like that much Ethereum, we got to vote on what we wanted to happen. With signaling, we didn't have to mine anything. I was just someone who had Ethereum, but like.
but it's not contract binding. You signal that you're doing something and then turn back on it. See New York Agreement, right?
Oh yeah, and you can see just how back and forth they are, the Bitcoin miners that are going back and forth between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin because of the difficulty and the adjustment that's plugging.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's just miners trying to make money.
Exactly. You're going to get whichever fee is going to make you the most dollars. So.
Does anybody else have questions? I have. All right. Okay. So can you go back to the picture of SegWit with the blocks and everything?
This one or
That one. Yeah. What does the highlight, the black highlight mean?
the arrow?
No, not the arrow. The darker shading. It's called segregated witness. You take the signature out.
You take the signature out of that shaded, like this shaded region, and then you put it at the end of the transaction.
That in the shaded region gets hashed, into it. All the transactions are hashed together.
The shaded regions are being hashed.
Like the signature at the bottom, the log time, the signature is not hashed anymore. And so, and as far as N2, like after a certain amount of time, you can actually discard that data.
Oh, okay. That makes sense, because I was wondering, reordering the stuff in there, how would that make it
Right.
bigger, right?
You're actually segregating it out of this. That I forgot to mention that's the part that gets hashed. You can create the transaction ID much faster. It's into faster transactions.
If in a possibility, because this thing with Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, like this is far from over.
Oh, 100%. The fact that they're now forking this and like getting 97% adoption like within their actual support for the fork is.
Wait, which fork are you talking about?
Yeah.
The Bitcoin Cash Classic that just got created yesterday.
97%.
No, not 90. They got 97% within their, like, there wasn't any split really between their actual camp. Like all of their community just against Bitcoin within like internal conflict.
Infighting.
You have, it used to just be Ethereum versus Bitcoin. Now it's Ethereum versus Ethereum Classic versus Bitcoin, and like conflict, and like people are fighting each other. That like you're helping each other, but you're also destroying each other, which is like
it's a free market. I mean, it's
right,
just like
exactly,
a healthy competition in which you're outlining, what you lack in that.
Although at a certain point it might not be healthy because Bitcoin Cash people are like displaying propaganda that is trying to just say like we are Bitcoin, and they're definitely not Bitcoin yet. People is definitely not going to be win, but like it is kind of happening. At least starting to.
So Bitcoin fork to Bitcoin Cash have their own communities. Bitcoin Cash days ago. Today.
An hour before the meeting that we had earlier.
All right, so that forked to Bitcoin Cash Classic, and the original Bitcoin Cash still has pretty much the majority.
Not many people, although I personally think that Bitcoin Cash within Bitcoin Cash versus Bitcoin Cash Classic was a difficulty adjustment. That is going to affect what happens now is going to be really interesting because the main problem with Bitcoin Cash was the mining difficulty. It's so profitable for miners to go back and forth with mine. Now that that is no longer the case, that miners aren't going to be going back and forth, to go to Bitcoin Cash, in my opinion, or the Bitcoin. I don't know. Probably Bitcoin, which would be the ultimate, destruction of Bitcoin Cash, just like every other Bitcoin fork. So.
Okay, I'm just wondering, because we up here kind of like know a lot about Bitcoin, so I'm sort of wondering like how many people know what's going on in this presentation? Got a good idea about what happened. Yeah. So, like, do you guys know what the adjustment, like the difficulty adjustment thing we're talking about is between Bitcoin Cash and stuff like that.
Like how hard it is to mine each block.
On each block, or like why it's sort of like topic in here. So, Robbie, you want to like try and maybe like explain that a little bit better?
Yeah, so it has to do around the difficulty that it is to mine a block. Mining is going to be based on how much power you have to throw at it. The ultimate base, so it's just a number that is computed based on how many transactions are within a block, a bunch of different things that go into, you know, a long math problem. Transaction within a block. Things go into the actual formation of the difficulty. I'm not even sure. Yeah.
Bitcoin, the way it works is the difficulty adjusts every 2 weeks, so that on average each block takes say 10 minutes to mine. Cash was forked because they wanted to kind of make it competitive against Bitcoin, like with the fluctuations of profitability. What they did is they said, okay, it's going to have a similar sort of structure, but it has this adjustment algorithm where if the bound for say 6 hours, the difficulty gets cut in half like every next block until it's down to a low enough level that then miners can start mining again. The difficulty will shoot up, and then there'll be a point where the miners can stop mining, let the no blocks come through, and then the difficulty drops down significantly, and then they can switch right back to that chain, mine, get the profit, and then switch back to Bitcoin without missing a beat. And they're basically Bitcoin Cash blocks are basically like little, if you like set something down, you just kind of let it sit there for a little bit, and you go about doing other things, and you just come back and harvest that, and then go back to doing other things. What you're doing here, so they're mining Bitcoin, harvesting Bitcoin Cash, then going back to Bitcoin. It's completely taking advantage of the system.
Old EDA though. Now that they fixed that, they're making the difficulty every 600 seconds, according to this new EDA.
Define fix. That works.
It's
Yeah,
I guess. I mean,
they're changing the incentives. Incentives for the miners was to, because that, you know, in game theory, you do what's most profitable. You do what the incentives point you to. So now they can't do that. Now they've removed that incentive. So now the miners have to pick.
Yeah.
Do we mine Bitcoin Cash or do we mine Bitcoin? Because now they're equally.
mine SegWit 2x, because even though it's suspended, it's really going to happen at one point, and then they're going to have ultimate freedom. Yeah. Oh, but here's, they spelled it wrong, apparently. But this happened. Yeah.
You're kidding me.
I think they meant to do that.
Yeah, that's
Something about Bitcoin Cash Plus.
Oh yeah, no, it's.
It does seem like a troll.
I didn't actually know about this whole the fork of Bitcoin Cash, so I learned something new today. The plus thing, I was just like, this is just getting ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't understand the context.
Maybe
Oh, his wallets. Great.
It will be updated soon.
it was actually the original name, I think, for,
Unlimited.
was it? Bitcoin Unlimited? Yeah. I personally really like Bitcoin Unlimited. Block size is interesting to me.
You gotta get miners to love it too.
That's true. You said Monero uses
Dynamic block size.
dynamic block size.
One other thing to point out with regards to the differences between Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin, that the miners who are mining these blocks, you know, kind of harvesting every frequently whenever they would go, actually had something called ASIC boost, which I think is actually even and people said it was like disproven, but then you kind of hearing about it again. Actually, there's something to it that SegWit actually patches kind of an exploit the miners can do to gain like a 20% mining advantage over anyone else. Jihan Wu, who owns one of the largest ASIC Bitcoin mining companies in the world, actually patented the technology that takes advantage of this boost so that only his ASIC miners exploit this. And so SegWit would fix that.
Yeah, all these different controversies out there that are like to sort of like see what people will be going over or promoting one thing, or like why Jihan Wu would promote Bitcoin Cash, for example. Maybe that could be a factor.
Well, the question I had posed earlier was like, why does he, he's a proponent of a lot of forks, and I'm thinking if he has as many forks as possible, so you could get a bunch of money. Granted, every time it forks, the supply is doubled, so the value goes down a little bit. But I don't know.
I just want to quickly add some speculation that doesn't really have much evidence, but really what this is, I think, is a form of warfare, and it's actually between, I think, someone like China and the United States. Miners, the reason that they're so efficient is because their electric bill is subsidized by the Chinese government. Dams and stuff to generate electricity. And so miners in China can a really good rate. They get really cheap electricity. The price of China, which its government system is communist, and a communist government system nationalizes everything. So every business in the country is owned by the government and miners. And so the Chinese government itself has an incentive to do anything it can to secure a large percent of this new digital asset, cryptocurrencies, and the largest one being Bitcoin. There, kind of tying that back in, when he was arrested in the United States, he at some point in the future he's like no longer allowed a visa. Like he comes to the United States, but he can only be here for like 2 or 3 days at a time. Surprising that someone like Roger Ver might have a vendetta against the United States and therefore side with just more on the side of China.
Well,
Yeah. So everyone definitely has motivations beyond just, oh, this is good for Bitcoin. Like there's definitely, sure, so like.
all right. So,
More questions.
So how does it happen when like you have a fork and kind of what you were saying for like when you have money in Bitcoin and then it's made, you just suddenly get that. How does that work?
Well, it's all stored on your private keys. So like, say you have your money in an offline wallet, in an online wallet, Coinbase, anything that supports that coin, that new coin that's getting created from the fork, if you have something online or an exchange, you're just going to create that, you'll be credited with that balance. You have to go through some work through your private keys. Usually all it is just getting a wallet for the new coin and then restoring that wallet as the new coin, and then you'll be credited with that amount. It's different on certain coins, like the way that you actually go about getting it. Mostly it was just Bitcoin Cash because it was the major one, not really like Bitcoin Gold. So a lot more places are like, okay, here's your Bitcoin Cash. The other thing is, say you're in a wallet online that doesn't support Bitcoin Cash, holds your private keys, which a lot of exchanges do. They're basically forks, right? So say you get Bitcoin, you don't get credited with your Bitcoin Cash. It's going somewhere because it's still getting created.
I do want to point out, because I have some people who I kind of brought into Bitcoin, and then they ask me all these questions like, oh my God, what do I do with all these forks? All it does is make more of a headache for someone like me who has to kind of talk to these people and explain it individually. Like it's not a big deal. One, if they hold a private key, they're not using it. Not stolen in the sense that it's not there. It's there. You just can't access it. What will happen is these companies will also realize how much of a headache it is to be on the support for like Coinbase support. Like, you got all these like ladies calling up like, where's my Bitcoin Classic? Like, like having to explain to them, at least you guys can kind of understand explain what this thing is. They're a legal business, so like you got people who are like, I'm going to sue you. You've got real legal threat.
No, but there's terms and conditions they're using Coinbase, so it's
Yeah.
like you gotta.
Like
It's a headache. It's a huge headache.
Just for the support, yeah.
So one thing that I think these companies might start doing, if you want access to your private key, they could just give you like you don't have to sign some like liability. Like when we give this to you, like it is completely on you now, but they give you your private key. There's no reason that you shouldn't be able to import that private key into a wallet for Bitcoin Gold or Bitcoin Cash or whatever it is, and actually get those back. So they're not gone forever.
Essentially, there's going to be a wallet that ultimately wins. It's going to be established as the Bitcoin wallet. They're probably going to partner with a lot of the exchanges and ultimately have some sort of centralized thing, but you know,
What makes you think that? It's gonna be like one.
just because if you know you have, it's going to be competition between wallets, but you're still going to have one that ultimately wins. And then why would you want one wallet that capability of that one wallet does with Coinbase and where all these other people are getting all their coins? Wallet, if it has that functionality,
They're just copy the functionality.
I mean, it's open source.
Well, it's not, then
They'll
you
figure
wouldn't.
it out. Like, someone out there will.
yeah.
Do you know much about replay protection?
Not as much as some other people in this room. I can definitely explain.
Someone I talk a lot, so.
You know a lot, it's okay.
Okay. So replay protection, basically, you know, if you go back to the screen with the forks, where you've got the two different chains that run parallel.
Yeah.
Wait,
No, isn't it this?
there we go. Perfect. All right. So basically, what happens is, you know, each of these is different blocks, and so as an example, one of the reasons why the Segwit 2x fork was called off was because it didn't have replay protection. What that meant is for a wallet service like an exchange, for instance, that they have your Bitcoin stored on a wallet that you can then withdraw all your Bitcoin from that exchange. What can happen is, because that was broadcasted on the open public internet, that's how Bitcoin works, a malicious hacker could then look at the network of data that you broadcast, your signature, kind of verifying that transaction, and then rebroadcast it or replay it chain. So it's as if you withdrew your Bitcoin and then withdrew your Bitcoin Cash or your Bitcoin 2x. Your basic Bitcoin 2x and Cash had that protection. The result of this is they can't necessarily send that funds to themselves, but they can just mess with the exchange by just attack on the exchange and just burning things just for the sake of burning things. Segwit 2x didn't have that protection, so that's why it was like, well, this is very dangerous, and people, you know, exchanges weren't going to implement it.
Yeah.
Segwit 2x, or not 2x, but Segwit itself is supposed to be used, but the adoption rate actually has been going down, and fees are going up. And
I mean, in my opinion, that, because everyone has a different opinion, like on something like that, because that is the controversy that's happening right now. In my opinion, you don't, like anyone, that it's a store of value. So something like Bitcoin, to me, isn't even feasible because it's not the use case, in my opinion, to buy your cup of coffee. I mean, on it, but.
Yeah, I mean, it was supposed to be like something that a lot of people would be implementing, and it would lower, or it would clear some of the transactions that are building up, right?
Right.
But people are using it, and there are a very high fees for Bitcoin that makes it things with it. So, I mean, there are these different camps. There are the people that really do support Segwit. I mean, people will adopt it in the future, and then it'll scale through Segwit and these off-chain solutions. Now, I believe they're trying to do it. I mean, I don't think they want the $5 in like the worst case classic or on the Bitcoin Core chain. Really, like a big reason why people your block sizes or like Bitcoin Cash, because it'll just clear all the transactions and to lower fees. Right?
Isn't
that's
it
my
the
take
more
on it.
forks, the lower the fees, because you'll have more mediums of because the reason why the fees are high is because people are willing to pay the price. But if you have more mediums to transact.
Yeah, I mean, it's all dependent on how many people, how many transactions there are. I mean,
Right, so like, if you only use Bitcoin for like massive transactions, you know, which the fee compared to like if you're sending $1 million on Bitcoin, the fee is still gonna be, what, $5, $6? I mean, it's not gonna be anything, you know? But that's why if you're live for something, Bitcoin's out there to be used as, this is why make it a Bitcoin fork when you can just create something not branded as Bitcoin. When Bitcoin, all these other cryptocurrencies have use cases too, in my opinion. We don't need to use storing value, Bitcoin Cash for buying coffee, Bitcoin Gold when we want to, you know, do something else. Like we can use Litecoin, and then we can use Monero for private, and we can use, you know, all these other for the uses that they're intended for.
Is there a use case then for both Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash? Because in a sense, you're saying there's going to be a balance of, you know, store value versus ease of use.
Right.
Go as far as say, kind of building on the speculation that this is less of a Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin. This is more of a China and the United States. And the same argument, yeah, like you guys do your thing, we'll do our thing. Like if China wants to use Bitcoin Cash and that wants to be their, you know, the Chinese controlled currency, I mean, by all means, even great, even better. It's having more choices isn't a bad thing, because it just gives, as the consumer, it gives you more, you know, it forces competition and it makes it a better product at the end.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, everything that I buy, I hedge it with Bitcoin Cash anyways. In my view, I don't know which one is gonna, so.
You know, the one pattern I think you've seen with like the Chinese miners is they love to cry wolf. You know, or the price of Bitcoin, you'll see the price spike up, and then, you know, China, we banned Bitcoin. Later, like China says, we don't ban Bitcoin, we unban Bitcoin, the price goes up, and then like, we ban Bitcoin, and then you know, there's a meme about this. This is what they do all the time. And this is just another variation of that. We're hardworking. We're not hardworking. We're hardworking, and it's just a way to manipulate the market. And on each swing, we're buying Bitcoin, and you know, just the mom and pop who are investing and aren't really keeping up with this thing, or you know, that's part of the risk.
In my opinion, I can't see Bitcoin and Bitcoin Cash lasting through the same time, just because I think other cryptocurrencies are better just in their code, and they're gonna cash. Bitcoin, I think, is gonna last just because Bitcoin is Bitcoin. It's the biggest one right now, and it is, you know, what everyone knows. I think are gonna take over. Bitcoin are gonna try and accomplish.
yeah. It's everyone's opinion.
Yeah, it really is. And the only way we're gonna see is just see what happens. So
When institutional players start coming into it, and the demand pool grows even more than what it has in the recent past.
Mhm.
You know, to a certain point, there's going to be a breaking point, and when is that? And is it going to flow out to other cryptos, or is it going to go to, you know,
or the Bitcoin forks, or is it gonna go to
something else?
exactly?
This is less of a someone arbitrarily made the decision. You know what? We're just going to make the capacity of Bitcoin smaller because we like it. We just don't have the technology developed yet to do it. A decade ago, I remember going on a computer and downloading a picture, you know, just a simple JPEG, and it taking like before I downloaded. Whereas today, I can, you know, like gigabytes a second with, you know, like.
Right. And then why was there such a just increasing it by, you know, a megabyte too?
Because there's trade-offs.
Well, yeah, without anything, but is there going to be progression where that's going to be needed at some point anyway? So
Right, which is why what he mentioned about the people that are mining SegWit 2x right now is interesting I'll think about it.
On that side too, though, it's not just the miners, but who have to go into place as well for it to be even feasible, in the sense the laws will have to support it, exchanges will have to support it, because otherwise you're gonna have something over here that, I mean, if it's just miners themselves trying to mine it, you know, it's the whole ecosystem in a sense has to get behind whatever it is to.
The other thing is, it's ultimately which one is Bitcoin, you know, because there's people that out there that say Bitcoin Cash is the real Bitcoin, and then should we just disregard what is now known as the real Bitcoin? So like, it's going to be whatever one, in my opinion, is called as the main Bitcoin, but that's going to be because there's trade-offs in the network, which every time they try and progress.
There's a lot of that sort of sentiment in the market, and they call it like FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And sometimes I think it can be a toxic mindset, because it's easy to think, what if this happens and then the mempool gets flooded, and then oh my god, the whole system's going to break and everything, the rules, and you just get incredibly nihilistic and just like this technology. There's a lot of people working really, really hard on this, hardest minds. It's not perfect yet. It's getting there. And you know, like if you own Bitcoin, you own Bitcoin Cash.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. The only thing is, you know, the people that are getting into it and are trying to call it experiment with it or whatever and send stuff. I mean, in a sense, what was they can spam the network, make it a mempool. And I mean, I tried sending something not that long ago, and it took almost 2 days to block confirmation on it. So I mean, you know, something when you go on to the, you know, call it whatever websites to see how fast, and they try it and they see that it's, you know, hours or days or whatever it is, actual transaction, you know, kind of contradicts itself when it comes to, you know, the white paper in a sense almost.
I totally agree with that, honestly. I mean,
You know?
like going back to what you were saying before, why is a 1 megabyte, like why couldn't they just increase to 2?
Yeah.
Right? There are like two different camps of thought and it is that people have different. This is going to scale ultimately to be pervasive in the entire world. I mean, sure, we can keep increasing the block size, megabytes. It's not going to be an issue for hardware. But once you start increasing that to support world, plus maybe there are applications for microtransactions between even just machines trading Bitcoin between each other, there's going to be a huge amount of transactions. So the camp that's sort of like trying to limit the block size, can't just increase the block size and scale on the chain. This scaling to layer 2 solutions like Lightning Network. In my opinion, I think, yeah, we need off-chain scaling, but that's in the far future. I mean, right now,
When you're saying it's in the far future, we're already having issues right now, so why not, you know, alleviate some of the problems and work towards that longer term solution?
yeah, I totally agree. That's why, I mean, I support size now, just so that we could get
Over the hurdle.
over like these transaction fees. Get people in now when transaction fees are $5. Hard, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not.
Why are you in Bitcoin in the first place? I know people who are in Bitcoin to make a quick buck. You should leave. Right? People, you know, I agree with it, that I think Bitcoin is the first time in human history where we actually have that is actually kind of run by the people as opposed to centrally controlled.
Yeah, I agree.
And one of the major trade-offs of increasing the blocks is that it does lead to further centralization. Single parties that have more and more control over the entire system. And we see this as the whole problem with the Federal Reserve and the inflation in our supply. if we're trying to provide a
Now-
world,
You know, in a sense, you're saying hardware or whatever isn't up to snuff with, increasing box sizes, but now you're also other programmers, because they don't want to go through and more support, call it a segregated second layer, programming. So you're still dividing people and saying, it's this or this, with the both, the 2X would have been, but, got called off.
Yeah.
I'm a supporter of the Segwit 2X. I think it will work. It is a beautiful compromise. We'll see how it plays out. One of the things you said the problems. You said that there's a problem with the $5 fee of the Bitcoin. If I am trying to, send money to my family in another country, across the world with Bitcoin, Bitcoin is like Western Union will pay like 30% fee, and it'll take like a week.
It's going for a while, and you're used to, or we're used to, for pennies in a sense. Now it's $5, $10. Something to be said about that. And like I said, it's not just that. It's in a sense, you can attack the system by spamming it with low transaction fee. All of a sudden now, in a sense, you're forcing everybody to pay a lot more just to try to get there.
But I also feel that it's bringing back to like econ. If the fees go up for transactions, which makes the fees go down again.
There's going to be cycles. I agree. When you think that they're also setting themselves up in a sense, miners want more fees so that they can expand the network for free in a sense by making a lot of transactions at no fee costs, which forces the fees to go up.
Yeah, but then I'm going to bring in Robbie's point, which says like, oh, if this isn't, they're spamming it, they're making the fees higher. I'm going to buy my coffee with Litecoin. I can go to another cryptocurrency and.
No, I understand, but I forget. I mean, here we know how Bitcoin and kind of what's going on, but it's all the people and all the news that it's getting now, and people are trying to get into it.
Right.
And it's saying, we're saying that it's fast, it's cheap, but when they try it, they get in.
I think the most I value the most of Bitcoin isn't that it's fast or whatever or cheap, that it is uncensorable. Transaction. I know that there's no third party who can say, you know what, I don't agree with you. I don't agree with what it is. It is censorship resistance. It's immutable. It's in the history. There's no changing it. You can't rewrite history. When I send something, I know it to be truth, and I can it's trustless. System, I can just trust the protocol. That's the value that I derive from it. It's not great because it's not super fast or super cheap. It'll get there. Super cheap, I'll use Venmo. The point of cryptocurrency is more than, I think, making a quick buck, buy coffee. You can do both of those things in different areas. It offers something different.
Hey, man. You want to sign off, Robbie?